Special Situations Fund is kind of a new entity, maybe a couple of years. We have not seen it turn around to many companies. What's your sense? The sense I got from speaking to some of the Special Situation Fund sympathizers is that, as you just explained, they also don't want the burden of debt to the extent that it spoils the current company from working. Is there a way Special Situation Funds can design the restructuring of the company so that the bankers also find it not killing?
So I think Rashesh picked up on the right thing, and I think Cyril said it too. There's no magic bullet. I think the way we are segmenting this, and I understand for discussion purposes, we've sort of siloed the discussion into a few things, but really isn't one or the other. It ends up being a mechanism where, on a case by cases, it'll be defined. In certain cases, liquidation is the only right answer. And I think ARCs have done a great job of liquidating. But in certain cases, that's not the answer. Reviving and getting the company back on its feet is the right answer. For that, it cannot be just an ARC. It cannot be just saying an SDR. We're going to need 2 or 3 things. We need to be able to take on and aggregate the debt, the senior debt at place, buy it at the right price so that essentially you can put a layer on top, which is priced effectively and efficiently. You then need to have the ability to give working capital, the ability for the company to function, and that debt needs to be provided. And then finally, you need the right equity in the company. So the effective answer is a little bit of everything we're talking about.
ARCs, as all of you have said, have worked in smaller cases. Will the Special Situations Fund be able to scale up the model and make them successful for slightly bigger stressed assets?
Look, I think yes. I think that there is an answer here. There is the right answer. And the answer is that banks, there's a little bit of everything. I mean, again, we're trying to search for the perfect answer, which is banks should not lose any money. Funds should make, excessively beautiful returns. No, there's a little bit of everything. There is obviously a return hurdle that we'd want to meet. There's clearly some amount of a haircut the banks are going to have to take. And I think it's a little bit of everything. Now, can we do the big ones? The question is, can you take on a 50,000 crore debt and can you get it done? I'll tell you where the problem lies. Number one, the way the Indian banking system works, it's not just one bank you're dealing with. There's a consortium of banks on the other side. So we need to be able to essentially have all of the banks talk together. If it's an ARC, you need to have aggregation of a significant amount of debt collected. Only then can you actually effectively put in a resolution mechanism. So the answer is a little more complicated and is nuanced as opposed to a simple yes.
I take your point. Actually, we shouldn't be talking in extremes, and I didn't expect that 8 lakh crore of stressed assets, nothing will be written down at all. But Mr. Bansal, do you see a meeting point here? The RBI has already asked you all to take provisioning, probably 25% in some of the stressed assets. So if the write down is 25%, you've already provided for it. Is there a meeting ground there with, the banks taking 25, 30%? Will that be okay, you think, for the banking system?
I think we have to look into different segmentation perhaps. Industry which is having a temporary problem, whether banks can wait, and the type of debt which is there, 40-50,000 crore. Perhaps immediately it may be difficult for the ARC to handle that. Because even if you say that banks are ready to sell at 60%, 30,000 crore and 15% of that 30,000 crore becomes 4,500 crore. So the ARC and at Jayesh I think made that point. This 15% I think RBI should allow perhaps to come from Special Situations Fund. That can take care of some I think funding needs of ARCs. And the loans which are, let us say, above 5,000 crore or below 3 to 4,000 crore, ARCs can handle. Smaller loans bank can settle. And I really need to see bankruptcy code, how it really works out. If it works out something like Chapter 11, and then it can handle even bigger cases. But otherwise, perhaps for bigger loans, banks have to do restructuring and do a small haircut, what you are saying, as 25% provision or 20%. It helps. I mean, indirectly, though, banks are not liking what the RBI has done in the AQR or whatever, but certainly it helps them to settle these cases. And many of them cases are not restructured and they were standard. So that was becoming, in fact, constraint. So today, to some extent, that will help.
Maybe it's time actually to set up a bad bank. maybe it's time for the large assets, 10,000 crore plus, etc., to be swept into one bad bank. And when the IDBI merger happened, they created SASF. What I understand, the track record has not been bad. They've done a decent job of recovery there. So maybe the top 5-7 banks, bad assets are pooled together and put into one bad bank, and then maybe the way the things get resolved will be quite different.
I think bad bank is not a good idea.
No, actually, I want to just put that to rest for two reasons. One, it is not a good idea because we don't have time to discuss it at the moment. The second reason why is government doesn't have the money. So, you can't put 8 lakh crore, 4 lakh crore, 1 lakh crore. That 1 lakh crore is not there. So you can't capitalize the bad bank. If you have no money, why talk about it? And the other, I think, very important reason why the regulator is stemming the bad bank argument is that then a Babu takes a decision. At what price you will buy from the bank, the market is not taking the decision. And this just opens the gates for cronyism or charges of cronyism. Now, some quick thoughts on bankruptcy code. Jayesh, since you are the participant in the commission itself, committee which recommended, what's your success rate? What is your assessment of life after bankruptcy code?
I was on the resolution corp committee, not on the bankruptcy committee, but
related.
Related, yes. When I just started my legal career, we had SEBI coming into existence, and we had DRT being created. And now when you look at the two track records, there's a world of difference. I mean, I have my issues with SEBI, and everybody in the room will have some of the other issues with SEBI, but nobody will say that they haven't done a good job. But can you find anybody in the room, hand on heart, who can say the same thing for the DRT? And then we had SARFACI, another sort of, to borrow Cyril's phrase, magic bullet. Hasn't worked. I'm worried that we are treating Bankruptcy Act also as a magic bullet. And I tell you, the issue is not new good laws. The issue is the mechanisms to administer. And what appalls me is the Bankruptcy Act will rely upon DRT and NCLT. NCLT is nothing but the Company Law Board. How many of you are aware that the Company Law Board in Mumbai hasn't been functioning for a year? How many of you are aware that the Debt Recovery Appellate Tribunal in Mumbai has been non-functional for months? And these are agencies under the administrative authority of the Government of India, not under Supreme Court or High Court that you need to tango with the Chief Justice and get them working and all that. And may seem out of topic, but let me just make a point. In Singapore, the Chief Justice of Singapore spends every quarter time sitting with the judges, giving them the performance reports on KPIs. This is the time you took to dispose. This is what time you took to write judgments after you heard the matter, etc. I don't see why the Government of India, through Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, do the same for the NCLT and DRT and put complete performance metrics in place that you have to deliver. I mean, the law says OA to be disposed in 90 days, and therefore we're getting gungo that the bankruptcy bill talks of fast disposal and all of that. But it will be the same tribunals administering that law. And I'm worried this is not going to deliver unless we start with a new institution ground up, which is completely performance driven and measured on that and held accountable on that.
Actually, Jayesh, that's very eloquently put, and I think you put your finger on it. It is, as probably to borrow the governor's phrase, implementation. If you don't even appoint DRTs, the current amendment probably wants to increase the number of DRTs. But increasing the number is going to be of no use if you don't appoint the officials to it. Mr. Shroff, any thoughts on the bankruptcy, even if it means smothering and sobering our hopes?
I think we should be a little careful in terms of trashing it before it is born. I think it's a well-conceived legislation. It has challenges in terms of capacity building, more details being worked out as well. So I think the general sense of direction, I think, is good. it's the same issues, and I think there's one major stakeholder which has been left out of the conversation so far, and that's the judiciary. Because no matter how wonderful a code you can write and how wonderful NCLT and everything will be, ultimately the buck stops in the judiciary. And the state of affairs that brought our Chief Justice almost to tears. So it was just interesting to see that all these years the litigants have been coming to tears, and now the judges are sort of facing a similar sort of fate as well. I think they need to be brought into the conversation. Why does this whole bankrupt Chapter 11 work in the US? Because there's something like a Delaware court or Chapter 11 courts which are very commercial. They are much more sort of investment bankers and less judges and lawyers who sort of do it. They are almost like bankers themselves. Unless we have a commercial, solution-oriented judiciary, this ain't going anywhere. Once we bring them into the conversation and they're part of this resolution mechanism, I think this will work. So I think it's a great idea. The building blocks are there. We now just need to complete the conversation, but let's not start on a negative note, is what I would say.
No, one quick point there. Advocacy as far as the judges or the DRT presiding officers, everyone concerned, time value of money. I mean, I don't know what it will take us for them to get that point. Because otherwise, day after day, when I keep seeing our matters, the way they get handled, most of the times, out of 100 instances, 95 instances, I don't get the sense there is any understanding of time value of money. I'm not blaming them. It's something alien to them. So it is advocacy, it is, understanding building. We have judicial academies and whatnot.
You need a corporate finance training course for them.